Happy Thursday, everyone. Hope you guys have had a great week so far. I am especially tired this week, and I really don't know why, but it's all right. Our verses today, we've got a lot. John 11:17 through 44, it says, When Jesus arrived at Bethany, he was told that Lazarus had already been in the grave for 4 days. Bethany was only a few miles down the road from Jerusalem, and many of the people had come to console Martha and Mary in their loss. When Martha got word that Jesus was coming, she went to meet him. But Mary stayed in the house. Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if only you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that God will give you whatever you ask. Jesus told her, Your brother will rise again. Yes, Martha said, he will rise when everyone else rises at the last day. Jesus told her, I am the resurrection and the life. Anyone who believes in me will live, even after dying. Everyone who lives in me and believes in me will never ever die. Do you believe this, Martha? Yes, Lord, she told him. I have always believed you are the Messiah, the Son of God, the one who has come into the world from God. Then she returned to Mary. She called Mary aside from the mourners and told her, The teacher is here and wants to see you. So Mary immediately went to him. Jesus had stayed outside the village at the place where Martha met him. When the people who were at the house consoling Mary saw her leave so hastily, they assumed she was going to Lazarus' grave to weep. So they followed her there. Can you imagine that? Like, they assume that she's going to go weep her dead brother, but they're going to follow her. People were weird back then. When Mary arrived and saw Jesus, she fell at his feet and said, Lord, if only you had been here, my brother would not have died. When Jesus saw her weeping and saw the other people wailing with her, a deep anger welled up within him, and he was deeply troubled. Where have you put him? He asked them. They told him, Lord, come and see. Then Jesus wept. The people who were standing nearby said, See how much he loved him? But some said, This man healed a blind man. Couldn't he have kept Lazarus from dying? Jesus was still angry as he arrived at the tomb. A cave with a stone rolled across its entrance. Roll the stone aside, Jesus told them. But Martha, the dead man's sister, protested, Lord, he has been dead for 4 days. The smell will be terrible. Jesus responded, Didn't I tell you you would see God's glory if you believe? So they rolled the stone aside. Then Jesus looked up to heaven and said, Father, thank you for hearing me. You will always hear me. But I said it out loud for the sake of those for the sake of all these people standing here, so that they will believe you sent me. Then he shouted, Lazarus, come out. And the dead man came out, his hands and feet bound in grave clothes, his face wrapped in a headcloth. Jesus told them, Unwrap him and let him go. I love the story of Lazarus. Jesus grieves. It says, One night in March 2015, I was startled awake in the middle of the night with a vaguely familiar Bible verse tugging at my subconscious. Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. I recognized this line from the story of Lazarus' death and subsequent rising. A strange verse to consume my mind, but it gnawed at me until I kicked off the sheets and flipped open my Bible. Day after day, I read the story, fixated on how Jesus responded to death. Just a few weeks later, I got the kind of phone call I had long dreaded, the kind that begins with tragic news and ends with a long middle-of-the-night drive to grieve with family. In that season of bewildering grief, I often pictured Jesus facing the news of his friend's death. While imagery of Jesus often depicts him as serene and placid, that Jesus seemed distant from my current reality. I craved a Jesus who understood loss. As Bonhoeffer reflected from his prison cell, in seasons of pain, only a suffering God can help. For a long time before facing grief myself, I thought that an orderly theologian of suffering would keep me afloat in painful times. But Jesus' tears tell me that knowledge does not insulate us from pain. Jesus knew how the story would end. He knew that the moments of sorrow were numbered, that Lazarus would lie in the tomb for only minutes more. And yet, rather than rush to the miracle, he chose to pause and mourn with Lazarus' sisters. His tears remind us that grief and hope can coexist. In moments of great sorrow and places of great brokenness, may Jesus' example give us permission to mourn losses deeply, while clinging to the hope that one day he will make all things new. In you, we do not grieve without hope. Help us as we hold in tension help us as we hold in tension the promise that you will make all things new in the reality of present brokenness. May we overflow with compassion for the hurting, and when we ourselves hurt, comfort us with your loving presence. Jesus knew the end game. He knew what was going to happen, and yet he still took time to grieve. Christmas can be hard if you're grieving, if you're missing loved ones. Know that it's okay to grieve. It's okay to miss them. It's okay to reminisce and remember. But also know that if they were born again, if they believed in Jesus, if they knew him as their Lord and Savior, that you're going to see him again. And I promise you, their Christmas is better than yours. I can only imagine what Christmas will be like in heaven. Everyone have a great Thursday. Have a great little ending of your week. And of course, go be the example.